Hey there, welcome to another episode of Rough Rants. I'm your host, Preston, and today we're going to be starting kind of another series similar in vein to the Star Trek series. It's not the same as Star Trek, of course. It's going to be about Power Rangers Dino Fury, the newest series as of the time of this recording that has been released. It is still being uh, broadcast on television. I think it's only about three, maybe four episodes in so far. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to catch up to the current episode, and then after that, I will try to do this more or less on a weekly basis, so I can review the show as it is progressing in real time, more or less. I'm going to say this right now. I'm not the biggest Power Rangers fan. I do like Power Rangers. I do like it more than a lot of people. A lot of people kind of write it off as just kind of goofy kid show with colorful spandex. That's really all. That's about it. I mean, it is that, but I see it a little bit more than just that. I do, for the most part, enjoy the series. It can have some actually good, decent life lessons in it. It can be a lot of fun and kinetic. There are a few stinker seasons, of course, just like with any show, especially for a show that's been running for, God, how long has it been? Like over 20 years, maybe 30. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan, so not going to know every single little detail. I'm not going to know all the Easter eggs. I mean, I can probably point out a few. I primarily grew up with Mighty Morphin. And then after that, did majority of the Disney era of the show. I think I stopped around Jungle Fury. That's when I kind of stopped watching Power Rangers. I glanced at it every now and then, but I never was dedicated to watching it. So again, bits and pieces of every season, and I'm actually going to be wrapping up Beast Morphers, and we'll be doing a separate rough rant for that as a whole. I'm not going to do the episode by episode like this one. So you'll see that in a future rough rant. But today we're going to talk about the newest series, Dino Fury. From what I can tell, it's basically dinosaurs plus knights. So that's kind of interesting. I do kind of find it funny that, I would feel that knights by itself would be satisfactory. Like, you could make something out of that, but nope, we're going to do Dino Knights. I mean, at the end of the day, it is directed towards children, so I mean, that does kind of sound cool. And as you know, as I described the show, it will kind of get more and more ridiculous, but in a fun kid type of way where you're just like, where it's infectious almost. But this video is going to concentrate on the first two episodes of Dino Fury. Because I'm trying to catch up as quickly as possible. And also the first two episodes are kind of just like a two-parter anyway. But yeah, the show starts out with the theme song, which is decent. I don't hate the theme song, but I kind of feel that it doesn't pop like a lot of the other seasons. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of the other seasons I can kind of hum in my head, and they kind of almost are like earworms a little bit. This one's okay, but I feel like it doesn't get as much love, so it doesn't have a opportunity to really show its stuff, but it's fine. It's satisfactory. It's not annoying, so that's most important. But the show starts off with our first ranger, or first future ranger. Her name is Amelia. She works for a company called Buzz Blast, which is basically like Google, YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google, so. But they're kind of like a streaming site kind of company, more concentrated on social media stuff. Like reviews of like lip gloss is one of them. Stuff like that. Unboxing videos. The mainstream, I guess you could say, social media type videos. We established that Amelia is into, I guess, cryptozoology, but I guess it's more of like leaning more towards paranormal stuff. Like when we first are introduced to her little scooter has like a bunch of like ghost stickers and stuff to really hammer in the fact that she's, into ghost. And she goes up to her boss, who's named Jane, and asks if she can go to Dino Hinge in the forest and do a video about that. Jane reluctantly agrees because she already did her lip gloss video and said, okay, you can go do it. But you did get permission to go into the forest, right? Because apparently the forest is like you have to have permits to go into this specific forest. She lies, of course, and says, yeah, I totally got it. She didn't. But she goes into the forest and she has this net gun thing called a spook snare. Of course, it's pink. And she's walking around and she has like a GoPro attached to it and she's filming herself, and then she gets a reading off of it. And it's kind of funny because it kind of reminds me of like the motion tracker from Aliens, like the boop, boop, boop thing. I thought that was kind of funny. And like she gets a reading and she shoots the net and it hits someone, and it's a person. It's not a ghost. I did find this funny though. Like she runs up and she goes like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me deactivate it." And I'm like, "How do you deactivate a net that's been fired?" But then she pushes a button and it releases an electrical shock, and it electrocutes the kid who's caught in the net, which I just thought was kind of funny too, is because it's like it's supposed to catch ghosts, so of course it's electrified. Okay. But she turns it off, and the kid, it's a teenager, takes it off the net, and he stands up and he's like, "Hey, what the F? Why'd you do that?" And they talk a little bit, and he establishes that his name is Ollie, and he's kind of the new kid in town, and his mom's an archaeologist, and they went to Dino Hinge as well to study it. And he's not 100% sure on how to get there because he kind of lost his way thanks to the net. But Amelia says she'll help him get to it. And they head over to Dino Hinge. And Dino Hinge it's basically just these statues of dinosaurs in a circle around each other. And like, it's kind of hilarious because it just kind of looks almost like those, what are they called? Like the tourist trap, like dinosaur forest kind of thing almost. Better quality, but it kind of reminds me of those. And they arrive and Ollie's mom is there and she's doing some readings of the area using her equipment. And she uses this little drone to scan Dino Hinge. And like when she does this causes like a little earthquake. And like the eyes of the dinosaur statues light up. And they also discover through the reading that there's a underground chamber right underneath the Dino Hinge. And right after this happens, the park ranger shows up and he's like, "Hey, you guys aren't allowed to be here without permits." I get that Amelia like knew that and decided not to adhere to this, but like I would think the archaeologist mom would know about that. Like you can't just go into areas and say I'm an archaeologist and be able to poke around wherever you want willy-nilly. You have to have permission almost anywhere to do that. So I would have thought she would have, been able to follow the rules and get a permit, but apparently not. But she goes with the park ranger to file out some stuff, and she tells Ollie and I guess technically Amelia if they can get the equipment packed up and put into the car. And so the park ranger and the mom leave, and then Amelia and Ollie are packing everything up. And while they're doing this, all of a sudden this, I'm not going to call him a monster, but this villain shows up. He's kind of like dressed up in like this night garb kind of thing. He kind of, he's like, has like purple tint, and he has this scanner, and he's scanning around, and he finds also that there's an underground chamber below the Dino hinge, and he ends up slicing the ground and is able to go into the structure underneath. And Ollie and Amelia see this, and they're like, "Wow, let's go down there." I'm like, why would you follow him? He's clearly dangerous. Like, I would wait and see if he leaves and then maybe go, but not literally right after he walks down, but whatever. So they go down, and they're looking around, and they come into this chamber, and there's these like kind of night squire robot looking things. They're covered in dust, and they're like surrounding this chamber, and there's like a bunch of little things. Like there's these like keys on this wall. There's a wall that has a bunch of swords on it, a few other things, and they're looking around for a second, and then the villain shows back up, and he's looking for something. He's saying that he has an energy rating and he needs to find it. And then this back chamber opens up, and there's this robot cyborg dinosaur lady back there messing with a console, and she's trying to activate something. And the villain starts to attack, and he announces that his name is Void at Night, and that he's here for the energy source. And the cyborg dinosaur lady is telling him basically to get lost, and she's trying to get the console working and to revive the Red Ranger. The Red Ranger's in this pod. He's like in stasis, and she's trying to get that working. But what ends up happening is Void Knight's right there, so he's about to attack her. But Ollie and Amelia come in, help her out by distracting the Void Knight and shooting the net at him. And while he's down for a second because of the net, the dinosaur lady, whose name is Solon, I believe that's how you pronounce it, Solon, she throws a key towards them that'll help them with that'll give them control of the Hingemen, which are the squire robot things. But when she throws it, Void Knight grabs it out of midair, and he's just like, nope, and he puts it into his sword, which has a dinosaur on it, puts it into the dinosaur's mouth that's like the guard of the sword, and then like cranks it a couple of times, like and then the Hingemen, which are basically the season's putties or basic ground henchmen, basically, of this series, I'm going to assume. They get activated and start to attack. While they're being attacked, Sauron, he shows up. Solon is still trying to get the Red Ranger back up and running, and Ollie and Amelia are fighting off the Hingemen, and Void Knight is now ignoring them basically because he doesn't really care about them. and he discovers where the power source is coming from. And he opens up this little box, like this little container, and it has like these weird spore goop ball things in them. And he's like, yes, this is what I need. And he starts to take them out, and finally Solon is able to revive the Red Ranger. He pops out, makes short works of the Henchman, and follows suit after Void Knight. In the ensuing struggle, what ends up happening is the box falls down, and then all the like goopy ball things fly out and fly out of the chamber and into the world, basically. Although one of them does fall down right outside, and Void Knight goes out. He's pissed because all the things are gone, which are called spore gigs. He's pissed that they're all gone, but he sees one fall on the ground in front of him, and it morphs and hatches into this. It's a unicorn monster thing. It's called, let me double check, Shockhorn. It looks like a unicorn, basically, type design, and this is basically where the monsters each week are going to be coming from, these spore eggs. And as they're fighting off the Henchman down below, Solon throws the keys, which is kind of a dumb thing that she did, because the last time she threw something, it didn't end well. But Ollie and Amelia get the keys, get the keys, and they are able to morph into the blue and pink knight, or, well, they are knights, but blue and pink rangers. And they finish off the Henchman. All of them run up to the surface, and Void Knight and the Shockhorn have already left. So they go back. Everyone goes back down into the chamber, and we learn about who the Red Ranger is and what's going on. The Red Ranger is an alien. His name is Zato. He is apparently 65 million years old. He was put on stasis, and what it turned out what happened was the sporg eggs are like, I guess, basically this these weird, I guess that you could call them an alien race in and of themselves. Basically what they do is they travel world to world, hatch, and then destroy the world that they're on. And they went to Zato's home planet, and on the home planet, you had like an order of knights, basically. They fought the sporg things, and eventually the sporgs became giant monsters and destroyed his planet. And then they left. However, him and a group of knights followed after the sporgs, and they all went to Earth. And while they were there, they tried to stop the sporgs before they could destroy Earth, and they ended up teaming up with the dinosaurs of Earth at the time. And it's kind of hilarious because they're literally riding on top of the dinosaurs. Like, there's a shot where Zato is on top of a T-Rex, and he's just like, "Argh!" I was like, buy the toys! I thought that was funny. But, yeah, the sporgs are getting the upper hand again. They're not going to be able to really do anything at this point. But then, right when, they're about to fail, all of a sudden, this portal opens up, and out comes these like weird wizard type figures called the Morphing Masters. They're, I guess, from the morphing grid. And they show up, and it's kind of a dick move, because what they end up doing is they show up and they turn the dinosaurs that are there into statues. So they become the Dino hinge, and I just thought that was kind of a dick move because it's just like, oh yeah, we're here. Oh, these animals that have also been helping protect Earth. Yeah, you're stoned now. I just thought that was funny, but so they create Dino hinge, and they're able to make the original Dino Fury Rangers, and Zato and his team are able to defeat the Sporgs, and they get turned back into the little blob egg things, and they are able to contain them, and they're able to survive, and they're able to save the Earth. However, it turns out that Zato was like the only survivor. As of right now, Zato says that none of them survived. Maybe I have a feeling that maybe at least one other alien member from the past will come back, if I had to guess, but I don't know. But he's saying they're basically all dead. And then, but yeah, he's like, we got to get the Sporg eggs back. That's our main objective. And you guys are going to help me. And what's interesting too is that Amelia and Ollie are aware of Power Rangers. Like, they see when Zato is in the pod at the beginning, they see him and are like, whoa, a Power Ranger, like in the news. And they even know about like Zords, like when they're talking about after they defeat all the villains, they're like, oh man, when are we going to get our Zords? And I'm like, okay, so that's kind of neat. Like, they know of Rangers, because a lot of times in the shows they tend to act like the Rangers are brand new, even though like some of them have been around multiple times. But no, in this one they are at least common knowledge, at least common enough knowledge. But that's basically the first episode. The second episode opens up with the only thing I didn't say is basically Zato is the way he's an alien. He looks like a regular guy, but he has like these little antennas on the back on his head that kind of go back, and he can read minds if he touches you. But that's about it. And then at the end of the episode, he's like, all right, we got to go training now. Second episode opens up, and it shows them training to morph, which is kind of fun. I do kind of like that dynamic, because a lot of times in the Power Ranger show, when these people, especially like not trained teenagers, are given, the morphers and whatnot, they know how to use them perfectly instantly. Like, I don't really care too much because it's just whatever, but I do like the dynamic, because now they're new. They're scrubs, basically. They're greenhorns. They're practicing how to morph, and like Amelia accidentally almost hits Zato in the face, and then when they're doing like the maneuvers to do the morphing sequence, Ollie ends up. I keep wanting to call him Otto for some reason. Ollie ends up accidentally throwing his morphing key up into the air, but they're able to, get it down pat and are able to morph. And to describe the Ranger outfits, they kind of remind me of Dino Charge. That was the name of that one. They kind of remind me of Dino Charge, if you've seen that series. The difference is mainly the headpiece, and they don't have like shoulder guards like in Dino Charge. They had little metal shoulder guards on one shoulder, and they had kind of like it looked kind of like a sash on their chest. But for the most part, the kind of look the exact same. Only difference is they don't have the shoulder guards, and they have this like V-neck kind of design in the middle, and then their helmets have like a knight's face guard kind of thing motif on it. They don't look bad. I'm not in love with them, but they look fine. I'm not going to complain really about the design of the Ranger suits themselves. But so they're done training, doing a quick little training session, and Zeta also shows them that they can use their wristwatches to teleport. And it is funny when they first teleport, Amelia and Ollie are like, they get sick basically. Like they don't vomit, but they like get motion sick basically, which again is kind of funny because it goes back to that dynamic of they're new to this, so they're not going to be used to it. So I like that. And they get more info about the sporgs, and they're all over town now. And they also find Void Knight's charger thing, scanner thing that he was using to find the sporg eggs from the beginning, from the first episode. He dropped it in the scuffle. They find it and they're like, hey, maybe we can use these to find the eggs. That's how he found them. And they're like, yeah, but we also need to warn the populace about the threat. So we'll tell the cops. And Ollie has an idea. He's like, hey, why don't we equip this to my mom's little drone thing, and then that way she can scan the city real quick, and then we can find all the sporg eggs before it becomes an issue. And they're like, that's not a bad idea, but the issue is that it could result in negative consequences because equipping alien tech to human tech could be dangerous. And they're like, no, we gotta at least warn the people first. And I'm just thinking, like, I get kind of where they're coming from, but I'm like, there's 3 of you, and you also have a dinosaur helper lady and teleportation devices. So it just seems like Amelia and Zato could have went into town and warned people, while Ollie found his mom and got that up and running and had the help of Solon to make sure it doesn't do any damage. But they're just like, nope, we can only do one thing at a time, apparently. But they go into town. Zato shows that he can hide his little antennas, so he looks exactly like a normal person now. And they go to the forest ranger's office to warn them, and they also run into Ollie's mom. And like idiots, Amelia talks about point blank the Zato, or not the Zato, the sporg eggs. Point blank, she's like, yeah, they're aliens and all this stuff. And of course, the park ranger doesn't believe them. Although part of me is also kind of like, shouldn't he kind of sort of believe this? Because they've established that rangers are a thing. So monsters and aliens have come to Earth. So yeah, it's not far-fetched. But he, of course, doesn't believe them. And they don't want to reveal their identities, which I don't 100% get. Like, I would get Amelia and Ollie not wanting to reveal their identities because, loved ones and dangers. But Zato doesn't know anyone here. He's 65 million years old. Everyone he knows and loves is dead. So he doesn't have to worry about people finding his secret identities and coming after his loved ones. It's just... So I think if you really wanted to illustrate the dangers that was happening here and to prove that you're not full of crap, Zato should have just came up and said, like, no, I am a ranger. These 2 are helping me, and morphed in front of him. And then they would have taken it seriously, but they don't. But then they get a reading that one of the sporg eggs is hatching, and they go to where they teleport over to where it's hatching. And it transforms into this weird, it looks like a mushroom bunny creature that has the oh so clever name of Mucus. And she's kind of annoying. She's kind of reminds me of, like, I guess kind of like Dot from Animaniacs, but it's supposed to be somewhat serious of a show. I mean, somewhat, but she's just kind of like really like, yeah, whatever. I'm the bad guy, woohoo, kind of thing. So I'm not in love with her. It's actually kind of funny because they morph, and I do actually kind of like the morphing sequence. A lot of the morphing sequences can be hit and miss. Sometimes they're like, wow, that's really dramatic and interesting, and others are just like, yeah, they morphed. This one is, I would probably say, more in the middle. It's not super exciting, but it is more than just like a standard morph. So I do like the morphing sequence. And it is funny, like right when they're doing the poses to morph, like right before they do morph, Zeta like looks to both of them and are like, wow, that was actually really smooth, which I thought was kind of funny. But they morph, and Mucus runs up and is like, I'm going to defeat you. And Zeta just literally one-shots her and she just turns into a puddle of goop. And he's just like, oh, well, that was easy. But then Shockhorn shows up and he then is trying to destroy the Rangers. And he ends up working with Void Knight for some reason. Like, they don't establish why they are working, like the Sporgs are working with Void Knight. Like, he just like Shockhorn hatches, and then Void Knight is right there, and Void Knight's like, "You're gonna work for me," and Shockhorn's just like, "Okay." It's like, couldn't you have had a reason? Like, he has a device, anything. Like, it made sense why the Hingemen are working for Void Knight because he's got the key that controls them. So that makes sense. Doesn't really make sense that these monsters would just wholesale work for him. But they end up fighting, and as they're fighting, Mucus regenerates, and she says that she basically can't be destroyed. She's invincible almost. And she gets on Shockhorn's nerve, saying that she wants to also work for Void Knight, and Shockhorn is getting annoyed with her, of course, and he also has this personality of like being very boastful. Like, whenever he does an attack, he's just like, "Oh yeah, I'm the best. You couldn't even deal with that." So I kind of like that a little bit. I thought he was going to be like a general type character, but apparently not, because he ends up, as they're fighting him, Zato pulls out this key and he calls it a power. What does he call it? It's a boost key. I thought it was called a boost key. It's called a boost key that powers them up, and they stick the power keys into their sword guards that are shaped like a dinosaur, and that gives them a power up. And what happens is when they do it, when they power up, like, they get like this arm guard kind of thing that kind of goes up to here. It looks kind of neat. The only thing I will say is I think they picked the wrong boost key for the first time illustrating it, what they do, because he uses the one he uses called Stink Boost, and I'm like, did he say Stink Boost or Sting Boost? And Amelia and Ollie are both also basically say the same thing, where they're like, did he say Stink Boost? And basically what it is it allows him to shoot this ball that creates this horrific scent, and it drives off the Sporg monsters. Yeah, like that had to be the first one you're going to use to illustrate the abilities of the power keys? Okay. The boost keys? All right. Stink. Got to get that stank in there. But the monsters retreat, and Ollie's mom is hooking up the scanner thing to her drone. Ollie had asked her with behind the other Ranger's back to set it up so that they can use it. She's setting it up, and Void Knight and Shockhorn. Shockhorn show up back at Dino hinge. And I actually do like this because a lot of times the villains do kind of know where the Rangers are, but they don't attack them there for some reason. But he shows up there and he's like, "Oh, hey, like I need to go back down there to get the scanner thing." So he tries to attack the like make a hole again into the ground to get into the chamber, into the headquarters, but they fortified it, so now he can't get into it. It's got like a defense barrier shield thing. So I like that they established why the villains aren't going to be able to immediately, at least, attack the headquarters. So I like that attention to detail. And then they notice Ollie's mom, and they go after her. Rangers show up, they fight, and it's funny as they're fighting. Ollie's mom uses the drone, and she's flying it around, and she's like, "I'm not gonna let them get the scanner," and she nosedives the drone into Shockhorn as he's on the ground, and it just blows up like hardcore, like it was filled with TNT, and I'm just like, what the hell was in that drone? And it even causes Shockhorn to go flying into the distance, and I was just like, holy crap. But he goes flying. Ollie, in his ranger garb, tells his mom to seek cover, and they're going to go handle the monster. She doesn't know it's Ollie. And they go to where Shockhorn is, and he's starting to grow giant. And Zato is like, "Hey, I'm going to get my Zord. You guys try to distract him while I get everything ready. Here's some power boost keys." And I think this would have been the better time to show off the boost keys, because the power-ups they use are way better, because Amelia has this like wrecking ball thing. She gets a guard too, but it has like this like wrecking ball on the end, and it weighs her down, but it also creates a weight on the monster, which causes it to also get weighed down. And then Ollie uses a boost key that gives him like this super big slash, so he's able to hurt the monster, even though he's not in a Zord, which again is way cooler than Stank Ball. But they're able to distract him, and then Zato comes in with his Zord, which is called the T-Rex Champion Zord, which Amelia points out is an awesome name, and also asks like, who names these things? And they actually don't. It's kind of funny because Solon and Zato don't answer her. They're just like, yeah, whatever. We're still doing our thing. But the T-Rex Champion Zord shows up, and it, of course, sounds exactly like the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. But it shows up and starts to attack the monster. Zato jumps into it, and it's kind of like Samurai, Power Ranger Samurai, where he sticks his sword into like a little console, and then he's like in this like on top of a panel that allows him to control the Zord. It morphs into the T-Rex turns into a regular battle Zord by itself. It doesn't combine with anything. And it's way more nimbler, I feel, than most other Zords. Usually Zords are like super bulky and they kind of like have to move like this. I don't hate that, although sometimes the Zords are really bulky and you can tell like the actors inside just cannot move. But this one actually moved fairly decently. I did like that because he's able to like make poses and kind of jump around a little bit more fluidly than normally they would. He easily defeats Shockhorn. Defeats him, and it turns out that even if you defeat the Sporg monsters, what happens is they turn back into Sporg eggs and they become more powerful. And can hatch again if you're not careful. So to defeat him, and they're running up to get the egg. But before they can, Void Knight shows up and grabs it and runs away with it. And they're happy they defeated the monster, but they're disappointed that they couldn't get the spore gag back. So they're back in the base. They're talking about like how Ollie shouldn't have gone behind their back without, consulting them about that, because it could have put his mom in danger. And they forgive him, but they're like, okay, we need to tell the populace about the spore gags. And they're like, okay, we're going to do this. And Zato in Ranger gear is able to put out like a PSA about like, hey, here's these spore gags. Type, text, or tweet about if you see anything, straight to the Ranger hotline, which I just kind of thought was funny. I'm assuming he did it at Buzz Blast, is where he was able to get the message out. But immediately after that, they don't even follow up with that. He just says the PSA. It then cuts to Void Knight and Mucus heading into this kind of like warehouse type looking thing. It's like a bunker basically. And it's the villain headquarters for this series called Area 62. It's a military base stronghold thing that apparently they abandoned because the military will do that, and they left all their stuff in it too. But they go in there. Mucus is just being annoying, and it's kind of sort of revealed what Void Knight is trying to do. He has the powered up spore gag, and he puts it into a machine, and he just says, and like there's this little meter thing on the side, and the meter goes up when he puts it in, but it's not fully charged. And he's like, oh, I need more power to power up my machine, and then my master plan will, come to fruition. We don't know. He doesn't say what his plan is. He just says he needs power to power up the machine. And that's where the episode ends. But yeah, I actually kind of like this series so far. It's very energetic and fun. I like the music. For the most part, the music actually kind of sounds almost like dubstep, but it's not like obnoxious dubstep. It's like I would say like a good blend of dubstep and techno. So I kind of dug the music. And like I said, I like the dynamic of Ollie and Amelia being new to this, and they also kind of like fanboy out about being Rangers and stuff, which I do kind of like. I wonder what they're going to do with that, if they're going to keep that, or if like in the next episode they're basically just going to be like, yep, we're perfect now, and we're going to be super serial guys. But yeah, like I said, so far I am, at least with these two episodes, I am interested to see where this goes. If we're going to get some more Rangers. In the flashback, they showed at least 5 or 6 a total of Rangers. There was a green, black, and I want to say a different color blue Ranger that isn't around. They asked, Ollie and Amelia did even ask about like, hey, can we recruit other Rangers? And Zato said that the keys that allow for people to morph into Rangers were lost millions of years ago. So, eventually they're going to find those, of course. But yeah, so far I am enjoying it. Next time when I come back to this, I'll probably do episode 3 and 4 in one video. And then after that, I'll do each individual episode as they come out. Let me know what you think so far from my description of the show. How you feel about it. If you have seen the episode, let me know what you think about the episode in and of itself. Like and subscribe, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Bye.